If you are a developer juggling multiple GitHub accounts, maybe personal and work, or multiple projects from different clients, you have probably hit this wall. You clone a repository, push your changes, and boom, authentication fails. Or worse, your commits show up under wrong identity, mixing your personal commits into client projects. Hello and welcome to your channel, AWS Cloud Bytes. I'm your host Bhavesh Kumar. Today we are going to talk about how to set up SSH for your Git accounts. We are going to have multi-account SSH setup and we'll do step by step. Let's look at the SSH authentication flow. The three critical pieces. You have a Git client over here. You see a developer. You have a Git client, and then you have an SSH client. You have a Git config, and you have your private keys in the SSH folder. Don't worry about it. We are going to set it up so you will know how to do it. When you are doing a git clone or a push, the SSH client is invoked. If you're doing it by SSH, it loads the private keys, which is over here in your local .ssh folder. I'm using Mac, so this is all coming from a Mac world. This will be similar in Windows, but the path in the folder structure might be different. This private key is used to authenticate in the GitHub server where you have registered your public key. Once that is authenticated, you can have this user identity information, which is basically the email and any other Git config that you have. And then you can have the transfer of code once you're authenticated in the repo. So at a very high level, there are steps in which you load the keys, you authenticate with the server, and then you are able to get your Git configurations and the code transferred once you're authenticated. Things to remember, GitHub has a constraint where you can have one SSH key for one account. One problem that I want to share over here is that in the default SSH, it uses one single key for all the connections. So in case you are working with two GitHub accounts, one for your personal work, one for your work, you have two different emails where you have registered on GitHub and you want to clone one repo from private and one repo from work, that single user is not going to work. You'll have one SSH for one account. Let's move to the next one. Now, how is the multi-account setup going to work? You have multi-layers over here. You can see this is the initial, we have the git at whatever the alias you have. In this case, it is gh, which is for GitHub, and bk for my name. And then you have another one. I have borrowed another repo account from a friend. This is gh for GitHub and gd. These are the aliases. Then you have the repo.git. This can be any repo. This is how you are doing an SSH. Now, this SSH is going to read from your SSH/config file, which I will show you how it looks like. So you can have a host over here, which is an alias, a host over here. You can see gh-gd, gh-bk. These are the aliases. Other information, we'll talk about it. This goes through the keys that you have. So you have a public and private key that you generate. So it is going to load the private keys from here, and then it is going to GitHub personal account, and this is basically another user personal account. I didn't want to show a work account, my work account and the personal account, so I just borrowed another personal account. And this is actually going to talk to whatever repo. So suppose you are in this folder, you have set up project/personal, where you have made a copy from Git by doing a Git clone using this Git SSH. Now you have made the clone. Any kind of commit that you're doing is using your personal account to persist in the repos that you have or the repos that you host. Similarly, this one is going to be a separate setup altogether. You can have in the same folder, but if you are cloning using a alias that is from a second user, that will still be tied to an alias in a different account altogether. So suppose I'm doing a gh and gd as an alias and doing a clone in the same folder, that will still be connected to this Girish Dogri account. If I'm doing a ghbk alias, it is going to be connected to my personal account. Now, one thing I'm not showing is like having this git config file, which we can easily build, because if you are doing a clone using any alias, it is going directly to your account. You can make it global by saying anything that is checked out using this alias or using this email is tied to your account versus a different account altogether. So this can be done in a git config. So let's look into how to generate an SSH key pair. Let's talk about this. You can use SSH keygen. This is all through a Mac machine. So you may have a different command altogether in Windows machine. Dash T is talking about the choice of algorithm that you have. Dash C is basically your email. It can be an email. I'm just giving an example email, and this is another example email. And then dash F is telling you the custom file name that you want to keep. And we are doing a custom file name. So this is basically going to an SSH folder with this as prefix in both the file names. Let me generate the files now. So I'm in my terminal. Now you can see I can show you what I have in my SSH. So in my SSH folder, you can see there are already a setup of this public and private key. Then you have this public and private key. This is by Girish, and this is my name, and key gen, and then dash T. Let me clear this up. Now this is SSH keygen. Then you have the algorithm and an email. This will be your GitHub email. I'm just giving an example. And then we are saying store this as this particular file. It will ask for some kind of passphrase. If you want to put something, you can enter it. I will just simply just enter it without adding any character, so it's all empty. Now, if I do a listing over here, you will see that these are the two new files that were created. And similarly, if I do users now, so this is two keys that we have generated again, and this is a listing again. So you can see there are two new files over here, GD 2026 and BK 2026. So you have generated a public private key pair. Let's move on. Now, how the setup is done in SSH config is what we have over here. If you look at this file, this is saying host. This is your alias, which means you will say the git colon rather than GitHub. It will be the alias name that you have given over here. GHGD is what I was using. That is what I have set up. This is just for demo that I'm putting a suffix of here. Then the host name is the GitHub, which is the actual server where it is going to talk. So this is called alias. The host name is the server. The user is always git for GitHub. Then the identity file is the file you already generated. So if you look at this file, this is the file. This is the private key. Similarly here, this is the private key. That's what we are saying the identity is at this location. Identity only is yes, which is we are saying go by this specific key. Add key to agent, it's basically a cache passphrase. So we'll just keep it yes. And in Mac, we are saying use keychain, yes, which is basically macOS keychain integration. And I can show you my current setup. So if I do a cat on my SSH file, and this is under the config. So first of all, this is how it looks like. You have two accounts set up. This is by alias gh-bk. This is by ghgd. And all of the stuff that I already discussed is over here. Let's move on to the next slide. Now, this is talking about the file permission. In Linux-based or in Mac systems, you would give it file permission by changing the mode. 600 is like read and write. 421 is 7. So if I give 777, it will be read, write, and execute for all three levels. We are setting the config to be read and write, in this case 600, and then we are setting the private key again like read and write 4 and 2, while the public key is your read write, and then you have read. Let's move forward now. The next one is how are you going to register the public key on GitHub? So a simple command to get you a public key out is here. Like you can cat this .pub file. This is BK 2026 that we just generated. And then you can, if you paste it, you will see that this is how you set it up. Now this key is not going to work in my GitHub because the email is incorrect over here. But let me show you how to do it for the other one also. And then other one will also be GitHub. This is GD. And then this is, if I paste it, you'll see this is Girish over here. So overall, this is how you will copy the public key, or you can even open the file in a text and still copy it. Now going to set it up, you'll have to go to your GitHub account. This is my personal GitHub account. And in this GitHub account, you are going to click on SSH. So I already have an SSH key. You can create a new SSH key. Give any title that you want and paste it over here. Once it is added, you're good to go. So this slide is showing the same thing. You can copy the public key and then you can go to the SSH and GPG key, add a new SSH key, give a title, authentication key, and then add it. Now, once you add it, you can test it. So this is something that I performed using whatever I have set up. This is a new one, but I was just trying to show what exactly I have set up for both the accounts rather than registering the new keys. So this alias is GH BK 2026. These are the new aliases GH GD 2026. And in this case, I have already set up, the previous setup is like this. So I'm just gonna show how it looks like if I perform SSH -t git at you have gh-bk. So that's all I have. I don't have 2026 registered. So it is saying that you have successfully authenticated. And this is just to test it out. Similarly, you can test the other one. So if I do some cloning using this, it will give me this account. Now let me go and make a clone from this account. Now I am in my Git account, and this is a repo that I have. This is public, but that doesn't matter. I can just go to this, and you will see that GitHub is giving you github.com, but because you have two accounts, you would like to do a git clone, and then rather than having GitHub, you can just provide your own alias. So you can say ghbk, and then this is going to clone it. And if I do a demo, let me clear this out. So you have this, and if you look at the files, it's already there: EKS cluster, serverless app, SNS, SQS Lambda. Also, you can just use git remote, git URL origin just to find it out. Or you can just say git config -- git remote, not that way also. Now, this is done, and I need to copy something from a different repo. So I'll just go, and this is a separate personal account, my friend's account. So I'll copy it from here, and you can see the user is Girish Dogri in this, and I'll just say clone. And you remember, if when we did a setup, this was like github-gd is what you have. So if I do this, I was able to clone it. Now, if I look at this, there is a SSH test repo and LSL. You can see there are two files: license, git ignore, and readme. This will be all. So you can see all three files. These are hidden. And if I do the same test over here, it will be remote -v. You can see this is going to Girish Dogre as a user. And then if I want to do a git remote, get URL origin, just trying to find it, the origin, or I can just say dot git config get remote origin URL, and it gives you the same. Now I can do a listing, and I will just send it to a txt file, git status. So you have that. I will just add that file, and then I will commit, initial commit, and I will push it. So you can see that it has pushed to the main. And if I refresh this, this is 1.txt where the listing was copied. I made this file using listing, and then you can see two commits are there. So initial commit I created under my account, but now this is my current commit. So 12b5fae, so you can see the commit, this one. Okay. Similarly, if I'm in this and I want to do a commit over here, if I go outside the repo and I go into the demo code and I make a file again, I will just do a listing and I will pipe it to 1.txt or maybe 2.txt and check the status, and then I will add 2.txt committed by Bhavesh. I'll just push it. This is FAC for B. See, this is committed by me, and if you look at the commit history, this is by me. And the commit code is 3E60, which is here, 3E60. Hope that helps. So going back to the presentation, once you're done with this, keep in mind, when you copy the URL, it will show up like this. But because you're working with aliases, you will use your alias over here in the red. Troubleshooting, one of the issues that we face is permission denied. Permission denied is a public key error. So you can run this command to do some diagnostic around that. Primarily solutions are around public key is in GitHub that you have set it up correctly. Identities only is yes in your SSH config. And the private key permissions are like 600 chmod. And you can also check if your SSH agent is offering any wrong keys. It's primarily a key issue. Another major issue is like key already is in use. So suppose you're using the same public key in multiple accounts, that will give you this exception. Make sure you generate a key pair for each account. So you have an email one example, create a unique public key, public private key pair. If it is example two, create another one, just to keep it one to one mapping, one account, one key pair. This is the end of the episode. Please like, share, subscribe, and press the notification bell icon for future updates. I'm your host Bhavesh Kumar signing off. Thank you.